Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Unscripted and Unchained RPG Review. I am DM Bluddworth, and as you can see by the graphics, today's video is a channel news update number 59, and it is an announcement. I'm really excited and thankful. The channel has just broken 2,000 subscribers. So as you know, these milestones are really important for the fact that, at least I believe that each time that you hit these benchmarks, it changes the algorithm of the channel, gets it out there in more mentions and in recommendations for people to take a look at it. So the more and more engagement that I have on the channel, the more people I have coming to the channel to take that first look and to leave their suggestions or requests. And it just allows both both the channel and our community to grow, because now we're meeting other content creators out there. We're meeting creators of YouTube creators as well. And oftentimes we talk with one another, we exchange ideas, we go on each other's shows, our video blogs, and and we talk about the hobby. We talk about the hobby that we all share, and it really helps just grow this community, especially small-time creators that are just trying to break into the the whole idea of doing YouTube channels and talking about our hobbies and just getting more and more people involved is really an exciting thing. I'm really blessed with the subscribers that I've had from day one, going back a little over 4 years now. And it's been a nice, steady climb up to this point. And I'm really comfortable with the fact that, it has taken this amount of time, because I'd rather have a slow, steady growth, believe it or not, than something that skyrockets right up to the top and then bottoms out or plateaus and kind of stays there. So I've been super happy with the growth. Really enjoy the interaction that I've been having, and I'm looking forward to keep on bringing you more content that you want to see. And in particular, I want to send a message out there that if you have something that you want me to take a look at, feel free to put that in the comments section. And I'm going to address that right now as I start going over what you're going to see over the next week to 10 days as far as videos and content are going to be concerned, with either my channel here or my live stream and just my gaming in general. So without further ado, let me go and change views here. So upcoming videos and gaming activities for this next week to 10 days. So I really began my vacation. This is spring break, so I began my vacation back on Friday. Although all of last week I was sick, and I'm still kind of recovering from whatever I had. It was not COVID. It was probably bronchitis mixed with a sinus infection. So I was really unable to talk for about 5 days. And I'm just getting to the point where I can talk for an extended period of time without going into a coughing fit. That kind of ended Friday night. So looking over some of my older videos and really some really old ones, I had some requests coming in. So I want to take a look at those and talk about those. So I've been doing a video series with dungeon mastering and player mastery. Both of these were books from Gary Gygax. Gary Gygax first wrote Role-Playing Mastery in I believe it was released in 1986. I'm pretty sure it came out in 1986. So although this one says 1987, so he was still with TSR at the time that he wrote this. And then it was published, slightly after Gary Gygax was, out of TSR at that point. But this book here really talks about his discussion and his thought process in what it takes to be a master role player. And so I've been digging kind of deep into this, and I'll be breaking this down chapter by chapter, and although this wasn't a direct request for me to do this, there's been a lot of conversation recently with some of the channels that I have followed, and there seems to be a misconception amongst a few of them of what Gary Gygax really thought about, the hobby in general and participation in the hobby. What did he think about as a player? Well, I'm digging into that now, and going deeper and deeper as we go along through these videos that I'm putting together. Not necessarily chapter by chapter, but major point by major point. That's how I'm going to break it down. I did have a video series of mastering of the game, master of the game, which really talked about dungeon mastering, or game mastering, since he wasn't allowed to use Dungeon Master at this time. This book came out, I believe, in maybe 88 or 89, 89. So 2 years later. And so this completes his, Gary Gygax's 2 novels on the subject of, how he really thought the steps you'd have to go through in order to become a master role player and a master game master. And to think that there are connections to what he was talking about back then and where the game has moved now. And I don't believe that you can say, well, I'm, a Gygaxian dungeon master, and kind of reject everything that was done in the past and just latch on to the modern approaches to role-playing games. It can't be both ways. You're either Gygaxian and old school, or you're not. And I'm not even making a judgment as to which one is better or worse. Which one's it's a preference, right? So if you prefer to be old school, then you're going to kind of follow this, or even Dave Arneson's, which broke away from this as well, or this broke away from that theory of game mastery. So there's a division. There certainly is different approaches to looking at the game. There's a modern approach, a modern view of gaming, and there's the old school view of gaming. And even though they have a thin line of equal footing and equal understanding in certain things, they're dramatically different, and not just as far as game mechanics are concerned, but just in expectations of what gaming is. I think has dramatically changed. That doesn't mean that you can't cross over and, as an old school person, adopt some of the new ways, or as a new modern player, taking a look at some of the older games and actually getting into those as well. And hopefully that's a growing group within the overall hobby, as those that are willing to go back and forth between the old school and the new school. That's the ideal place for us to be. And then you can have your fringes that are, we're only going to do this, or we're only going to do that. So that's one thing that I'm going to revisit during this week, as I continue going through role play mastery. Another video that is coming up is, and this is again not a request, but it's based on some discussions I was having with the Broas art. I wouldn't really call it discussions. It was really a back and forth and not quite understanding where they're going from. And this is an example of like the extreme old school that I'm not exactly online with, but they had been mentioning, well, chainmail and just the sticking very rules as written with AD&D First Edition. So I went out and I picked up a copy of Chainmail. I got this on eBay for, I believe it was $16 or $17 or so. So it was like a great buy. I did not get it on drive-through because it would come with that legacy disclaimer from Wizards of the Coast, and so I won't touch anything on drive-through that that would demean these old school IPs from TSR era, and so I always try to, even if I have to pay a little bit more for it on drive-through RPG, I mean off of drive-through RPG with the eBay, I'll pay a little bit more in order to get my hands on them. So this is a reprinting, obviously, and I'm going to do a deep dive on this within the next couple of days. And that is just so I can develop a greater understanding before I go back and kind of lock horns again with the Bro SR and talking about, well, you're really talking about Chainmail being run with an AD&D first edition skin. And when I play or run AD&D First Edition, I'm playing it as a role-playing game predominantly with a very, very thin line of chainmail still kind of present, but not anywhere near the focus. And I think that's where the real separation between the two approaches to Advanced Dungeons and Dragons First Edition comes from. There are those that are still using this as a primary source, and then there's those of us that use this as a very foundational, but almost so far in the background now that you only see traces of it, and you might not tap into large scale battles at all running AD&D First Edition, and you're still within the rules as written because they don't require that you do mass combat. They just give you some components that if you wish to do mass combat, you could. That's my argument. So this is upcoming very soon. Now, a couple of months ago, I started looking into, because I was really getting into the background of Dungeons and Dragons, and its history really goes back to tabletop wargaming. And so I wanted to get some examples of old school tabletop wargaming, especially smaller packaged kind of games. I don't want these thousands of minis and all kinds of things coming along with it. I wanted to keep it nice and simple, and I already had experience with the makers of the History of Blackmoor, the DVD set, and they had released North Cape. All right, so this was a Kickstarter that was put out, and it's obviously a World War II battleship combat simulator. Tabletop. I'll go through all of the different things that comes with these really, really tiny, so I'm not even going to open them up, but highly detailed ship models that are in each. So there's an Allied side and an Axis side, and I am going to dig through this, and then hopefully I'm in a lot of contact with the one of the people who promotes these game products coming out of the Blackmoor group, and so I'd like to bring them onto the channel. Maybe we'll talk about this, or maybe an upcoming product that they're working on as well. So North Cape, be on the lookout sometime this week or early next week. This will be coming out on the channel as well. Let's see, another. Now, I was expecting to get the AD&D Battle System, and I did get it on eBay, and it came with not what I was expecting it to have, including the rule books. So I was kind of perturbed by it, and looking at it, and now in contact with the person. Do I send it back because it has everything but the rule books in pristine condition? But I mean, without the rule books, I really don't want to use it. So I'd have to spend like another $30 just to get the rule books. And now I'm pushing far beyond what I was really hoping to pay for it. So I got to try to figure out how to reconcile that. Not every single eBay purchase, although 99% of them turn out great. this particular one was kind of disappointing, so I haven't sorted out how exactly I was going to fix that. That kind of tied into what I was looking to have a greater in-depth discourse with the Bro SR over their gaming system, see if they actually use the AD&D Battle System. First, I wanted to be able to understand it as well. So that I'm going to have to put off until I resolve the issue of that box set. Now this was a direct request, and this goes back to one of my older videos, and every once in a while somebody will dig up something from a little over a year ago, and they asked for me to go over the rules of Luftwaffe. So Luftwaffe is an Avalon Hills game. I played this extensively as a teenager, along with things like Panzer Blitz and Wizard Quest, and just a lot of these what called bookcase games. And as you can see there, I have a number of them down here. B-17, Queen of the Skies was another really favorite game of mine. So he asked that if I would go through the rules of this because he can't quite figure it out. And even though I don't have a huge selection of of those war games, I do have the ones that I played the most. And even though I haven't touched this in about 40 years, I'm certainly looking forward to doing that. And that will come sometime this week. This will take me a little time to dig back into the rules, because back then we used to just break open the box and kind of play and learn as we went along with playing the game. Now, 35 years later, going back and trying to remember, sometimes I get hang-ups when I'm like, well, I thought it was this way, instead of just taking a look at it with like super fresh and young eyes. Now I'm looking at it, just trying to remember more than I'm actually reading, and that's where sometimes I run into a little trouble and get some things wrong. So I want to really do a nice in-depth reread before I try to present it on the channel, to show them, all right, well, this is some examples of play. I'm certainly not going to run an entire scenario by myself there. So let's see. And also coming up this week, my AD&D First Edition campaign, our group of adventurers have now completed the Keep on the Borderlands. Once again, a highly modified version of the Keep on the Borderlands. And we haven't done a recap in about the last 3 sessions, because I was, kept on hoping that, well, this will be the session that finishes it, and then we could put a nice bow on it and wrap it up. So we're meeting tomorrow night for our game session. Now, our magic user is, is not going to be available because it is tax time, but he might be available for next week. So this tomorrow night's session is going to be, excuse me, there goes that kind of residual coughing. The session, and I did a video yesterday talking about mentees and creating NPCs. Tomorrow night's game session, is going to be introducing each of the players with their first level student that they are now going to take under their wings. And each one of those characters are going to be fully fleshed out, a named NPC with their own unique motives and such. And you might even see a video later on today in the creation process that I'm going to go through with each of those, so that you'll see them, and that will preview sometime tomorrow. And then the players themselves will be able to watch that video and then have a good sense, so that when we get started with our game session, they'll at least know the name and the class and the race, and some of the minute background of their characters, or maybe they'll just know how they come into contact with them. And then They will not know their motives yet. They'll have to actually role play that out with them and learn that about them. And then there'll be a little uh, plot hook attached to each one, a little adventure hook that'll be attached to each one so that, something either will happen during that session or possibly later on scattered throughout the, 7 to 9 players that are in the group over the course of the next couple of weeks. So that's going to be a really important component of our ongoing campaign, and something I'm looking forward to. So that is pretty much it for this upcoming week. There's always other things coming in the mail, and always things that I come across. I recently did a Kickstarter backing Luke Gygax's adventure modules that he had created. I backed it at a level where an NPC of my creation is actually going to make it in, one of the adventure booklets or mini adventures that are going to be included. I don't know if that's across different, whether that'll be across all of the different game systems that they are producing that Kickstarter in, because they did hit several stretch goals. But every one of those game systems I actually own, so it'll be easy for me to create a character, for each of those to be included across the board, if that's the way it's going to work, or to just pick and choose one that I'll develop a character for and put that out there. So that's really exciting to actually, have my name in a Luke Gygax, product that's going to be out there, and it's sold really well. And I'm sure that even post Kickstarter, once this thing hits, it'll sell even more so. And really excited about that as well. So hopefully that comes through sometime this week, and I'll get a little writing done on top of that. So it's been a really productive week. It's been a really exciting time for the channel, hitting that 2,000 subscribers. I was considering how to do like a giveaway and go through some of my, my collection here, look for anything extra that I have, extra copies of things, and look to hand those out. And that will certainly be something that I do over the next couple of weeks as well, as a way to just give back to my subscribers, a little something to, acknowledge their support and thank them for it. And again, I'll get back to that a little bit later on. So without further trudging over old ground here, I always thank you for coming online. Let me switch over. Thank you for visiting the channel. If it's your first time here, welcome. Consider subscribing. Like this video. Leave any suggestions that you have. If you want me to take a look at a game that you're working on, please feel free to say, hey, I'm working on this game. Would you like to take a look at it? Or I have some things out there already published. I'd like to come on your channel for an interview to kind of signal boost, what I have out there that I think you might be interested in. I'm open to interview requests. I'm open to reviewing your products. When I review a product, if just during our discussion or my look over the PDF, if it's something that I feel that I would want to run or play myself, I'm going to purchase it. I don't expect free copies of anything. Certainly not free physical copies of anything. I'll take a free PDF, but I'm buying it later on if I'm confident enough that I'm going to put it out there on the channel. So nothing that I do a review for is something that I haven't actually put my own money to. And if it's something that's that I'm just not confident in doing, or it's just not something that I feel that I'm going to run with, I'll tell you straight out. It's like, it's not a product that I'm going to support on the channel. That's very, very rare. I think it's only happened maybe once in all the the 4 years that I've been running the channel, that someone had said, hey, will you take a look at it? And I took a look at it, and I was like, yeah, it's just not something that I want to push on the channel. So again, thanks for joining. I look forward to seeing you on the gaming screen sometime soon. You have a great rest of your weekend. If you're having a long weekend, a lot of us have had, a 3 or 4 day weekend. This being a holiday season for many people, and getting back to work tomorrow. I'm still on vacation, so that's why you'll see so many videos this week. Again, thanks for joining. Have a great rest of your afternoon. Stay safe out there. Keep on gaming. And as always, I look forward to seeing you on the gaming screen sometime soon. Take care.